So we got the 395 spoilers, and I know I said last week that that was probably going to be the final chapter of Toga versus Ochako, but no, I'm thinking this one is going to be it for sure, considering what happens at the end. It seems to have quite the finality to it, or at least somewhat. But let's go over what had happened in the previous chapter real quick before we get into it. So we saw Uraraka using her quirk awakening. She was actually able to lift up the entire Twice army with this, including the other heroes that were there helping everyone. And this caused Ochako and Toga both to unleash all of the feelings and thoughts that they had been keeping inside of them for most of the series. Uraraka straight up confirms and confesses that she is in love with Izuku, and it forces like this kind of catharsis, and moments later it kind of forces this catharsis out of Toga as well, where, you know, she says that she easily falls in love with animals, villains, heroes, boys, girls. Yep, take it for what you will, but it's mainly to do with them having blood and how her quirk works, you know, her wanting to consume the blood. And then they have like this sequence where they're both children. I know it's kind of just an analogy and it's supposed to parallel to Izuku and Shigaraki, which I'm sure we'll get their child connection sequence eventually too. And we also find out that Toga's ability time limit is up because, you know, she only had so much of Twice's blood. So now the clones are starting to fade away as well. And coming to the end of that chapter, Uraraka basically told Toga what she always wanted to hear. And she thinks that her smile is special and that it's actually the cutest in the world. And that made Toga happy. It touched her heart, but we'll get back to the touching of the heart stuff because this chapter begins with all of the clones vanishing. We see that they were heading towards the Todoroki family, Ida and Hawks, and one of the clones had his knife pointed at Hawks, but it vanishes and Hawks says that Bubai Guara, who was Twice, was a really nice guy, right, Himiko Toga? So I guess this is like the only interaction that we're gonna get between Hawks and Toga, unless they interacted earlier. But I think this is like their moment that they were going to have because, you know, Hawks killed Twice, and that caused like a whole big thing between him and Toga. A narration from Toga then begins, saying that her knife is something that allows her to become who she loves, so she shouldn't have held it with hate in her heart. We see Toga standing next to Ochako, who's lying on the ground. She has her mask thing on her hand. Toga is panting and starts to feel a lot of pain. It's a consequence of using her quirk. She realizes that Ochako is so exhausted because she didn't release her awakened quirk until all the heroes were back on the ground. She really didn't want to hurt anyone. Ochako knows she has lost a lot of blood and cannot move a finger. Toga looks around her and see all the people who got hurt because of her, and at the same time she remembers Ochako's sweet words. She knows that the loss of blood is also her fault for stabbing Ochako. So yeah, I think it was like 2 chapters back, Toga like stabbed Ochako in the stomach, and we knew that it was definitely gonna cause a moment like this. I mean, I didn't think it was gonna kill her, which it doesn't, but it did lead to her having a lot of blood loss, which is culminating in this sequence for the rest of this chapter. Hey guys, also, if you like my Hero spoilers, please subscribe if you haven't already. I'm always going to upload spoilers as soon as we get them, and it looks like we're going to be going back into more of the Izuku versus Shigaraki stuff possibly next, so I'm going to be doing chapter reviews for that as well. So again, if you just needed a reminder to subscribe, here you go. Thanks guys. She tells Ochako that the League of Villains want to destroy everything, and what would rise after that would be a world that's easier to live in. But she was so happy with what Ochako said that now she can't allow a world without her to exist. Toga drinks Ochako's blood and transforms. So that's interesting that they're bringing up the League of Villains endgame, which is essentially just All for One's endgame, where he kind of just wants to control all the resources on Earth and have everyone essentially rely on him, where I guess the League of Villains would be like his underlings and they would, I don't know, I don't want to say rule, but it essentially is a farce in the end. I guess it's trying to make it seem like they thought they were doing the right thing, but yeah. But now we see Toga transforming into Ochako, and there's actually a really great reason for this. So she says, "My feelings are genuine, so I will give you all of my blood." She puts the syringe in both their arms and starts the transfusion. Ochako feels her body heating up, but she knows what will happen if things continue like this. So yeah, this isn't the most sterile thing to do, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And this is like a great sequence actually. It all makes sense, and I think it's actually kind of well done, to be honest. Like Toga becoming Ochako so she can give her a blood transfusion. transfusion. Toga says that Jin did the same thing in My Villain Academia, using a clone of her to perform a blood transfusion. She no longer has twice his blood to make new clones, and that's why she turned into Ochako. Uraraka tells her to stop, but Toga starts stitching up the wound on Ochako's stomach. So yeah, that's probably not the best idea. You know, they're not really in a sterile environment here, but you know, I guess it'll get the job done. Toga says that Ochako actually seems willing to keep taking her blood for her to drink. She could very well have just acted like a hero and killed the crazy villain, but she decided to give help that wasn't asked for and saved the one who hurt her friends. So yeah, this is also another reason why Toga is turning such a hard face here, and it's understandable. I mean, basically what this boils down to is that all that Toga really needed was like a girl session, like a girl-to-girl therapy session essentially. And also, you know, someone not demonizing her and telling her that she was cute and trying to help her. Toga says that Ochako is really weird. Ochako replies that she's the weird one for doing this transfusion, but Toga says that she will always live the way that she wants to, and that's why she won't let herself be arrested, even if it's on Ochako's terms. Toga apologizes for the stabbing and for yelling at her. She says that Toya burned down the house that forced her to be normal, and that made her happy. But even though the house is gone, the wounds in her heart weren't, and Ochako recognized that Toga's pain was real. Even though it wasn't the easiest way, Ochako managed to touch Toga's heart, and that made her feel lighter inside. Thank you so much, Ochako-chan. I was so happy. The blood continues to be transferred, and Ochako starts crying, shouting Himiko-chan, and Toga smiles. Toga's narration continues with her saying that she drank people's blood with a mix of love and envy. But if she was loved back earlier, she could have also given her blood to many people. And if that happened, the world would be a slightly easier place to live in. We see an image of Toga letting a little bird fly and looking up to the sky as she smiles. But still, I am Himiko Toga. I lived the way I wanted to and was a normal girl with the cutest smile in the world. The two are lying on the ground. End of chapter. So, this is actually a really great sequence. I think Horikoshi did this well, and I'm sure, you know, some people have had issues with this fight or this fight arc as a whole, but I do think it's wrapping up pretty well. I like the dynamic here of the transfusion and the new friendship that they've developed. Although it was quick and it's going to be brief, I still like the way that it plays out. And I know that there's like major things going on right now, like essentially the fate of the world, or at least the fate of Japan. And it kind of rides on just two teenage girls dealing with their differences and like having this impromptu therapy session. But, you know, it is My Hero Academia after all. And I'm sure if this was like another YA show on like CW or something, people really would have complained. But for what it's worth, I do like this sequence. And the $1 million question, of course, is Toga dead here? I mean, it seems like she's dying because, you know, the whole letting the bird fly and looking up to the sky as she smiles. There's been tons of bird analogies with Toga. And now that it's culminating with the bird being let go and flying up to the sky, along with her giving all of her blood to Ochako here to have her survive, I think this would be a good fitting death for her. I mean, she says that she doesn't want to be arrested, so she's going out on her own terms, and she is kind of, you know, damaged, almost beyond repair at this point. Even though she has had this friendship with Ochako, I don't think it's going to like permanently fix her. She knows essentially what needs to be done here. Now, granted, there is a chance that in the next chapter, I don't know, something happens and then she gets saved and then she gets arrested and, I don't know, put into some rehabilitation program or some Suicide Squad type thing for villains maybe. That would be cool, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Horikoshi should just stick to his guns here and just have Toga die. I think this is a fitting death for her, and it gives me hope that Dabi is going to die as well, because if any of them should die, it's definitely Dabi more than Toga. But let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. Do you think Toga is going to die here, and do you like the way that this wrapped up, and did you like it as a whole? Let me know, and if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.